Hi, everyone.
Hi again. We're on page 407 of In Search of Christian Freedom. Under Indoctrination and Subordination, Ray starts this way. What causes people to let an organization supplant their conscience with its own viewpoint, or at least to superimpose its collective conscience on their own? What moves elders to disfellowship people when the elders themselves may not be fully convinced in their own minds and hearts that the organization's position is necessarily the right one, genuinely scriptural? I've asked myself those questions as to my own past course as a witness. Although the only disfellowshipping cases in which I had any personal involvement as a member of a judicial committee related to acts of clear immorality, I know that for most of my life as a witness, I consistently sought to uphold and explain all policies and teachings advanced. I view myself as having average intelligence, and yet for decades I was wholly devoted to supporting the full scope of whatever the organization published, and I could say, like the Apostle Paul in Galatians 1:14, that I was making greater progress in my religion than many of my own age, and was more zealous than they for the traditional views of the organization. How did it come about? And how does it come about with millions of other persons? There are a number of factors. Consider an example.
So he has a new subtitle here, Methods Employed. This particular man had been very depressed, and he was attracted to the religion for a number of reasons. Of the first meeting he attended, he relates, quote, I enjoyed the stimulating conversation and energetic atmosphere at the meeting. These people related to each other as easily as brothers and sisters, and clearly felt they were part of one global family. They seemed very happy with their lives. After my depression of the previous month, I was invigorated by all that positive energy. I went home that night feeling lucky to have met such nice people. I was elated at the thought that my life's path was now on the only true track. The thought that God was actively working to bring about the Garden of Eden. No more war, no more poverty, no more ecological destruction, just love, truth, beauty, and goodness. We truly identified with the early Christians. The more people opposed us, the more committed we felt. It was as if we were God's army in the middle of a spiritual war, the only ones who could go to the front lines and fight Satan each day. End of quote.
Ray says very early he was encouraged to share with others what he had learned. Of those who responded to his witness, he says, quote, we saw believers as people searching for God or looking for spiritual meaning in their lives. It was always amazing to me to realize how many people in this category told us they had just been praying to God to show them what he wanted them to do with their lives. Many believed they were spiritually led to meet one of our members. And that's the end of the quote. These words, Ray says, could easily be found on the lips of many of Jehovah's Witnesses. They could as easily be found in an experience published in the Watchtower or Awake magazines. Yet they are not the words of one of Jehovah's Witnesses. They are the words of Steve Hassan, former member of the Unification Church, headed by Korean leader Reverend Moon, a movement often referred to as the Moonies. In his 2.5 years of association, he became an ardent advocate and trusted leader of that movement, completely loyal and dedicated to its mission. He resisted any effort by family members or others to take him away from what he was convinced was the truth.
After an accident opened the way for a complete change of viewpoint, he determined to provide others with the benefit of his insight into the means by which humans can be led to give over their minds and consciences to a religious system. The book he subsequently wrote does not discuss Jehovah's Witnesses. Admittedly, it deals principally with movements that resort to obvious and extreme methods of indoctrination, including physical isolation, rituals and chants and similar practices. Yet there are certain elements he describes as basic in mind control, which surely merit serious thought. Consider the following. Those who become candidates for mind control are not in the majority strange people. Of the thousands of persons he spoke with or counseled, Hassan states, quote, "The great majority were stable, intelligent, idealistic people. The sheer number of sincere, committed members whom a newcomer meets are probably far more attractive to a prospective convert than any doctrine or structure." And he's quoting from his own book called Combating Cult Mind Control. Why then did they allow others to dominate their thinking? Again quoting Hassan. The essence of mind control is that it encourages dependence and conformity and discourages autonomy and individuality. It seeks to undermine an individual's integrity in making his own decisions. End of quote.
Ray says the Watchtower training causes Jehovah's Witnesses to view independent thinking as sinful, an indication of disloyalty to God and his appointed channel. Pointing to a further element of mind control, that of control of information, Hassan states, quote, "The ideology is internalized as the truth, the only map of reality. All that is good is embodied in the group. All that is bad is on the outside. There's never a legitimate reason for leaving. Members are told that the only reasons why people leave are weakness, temptation, insanity, brainwashing, pride, sin, and so on." That's the end of the Hassan quote. And then Ray concludes this section, "I do not favor the loose application of the word cult that has become common today. As someone observed, for many the term is a label they attach to any religion they do not like. I do believe that a religion that is not a cult may nonetheless manifest many cult-like qualities. Of the elements presented above as fundamental features of religions exercising mind control, it is a fact that every single one of them is clearly present among Jehovah's Witnesses." And he has a footnote in a comparison to Hassan's comments from the Awake, August 8th, 1965, page 18. Quote, "Contrary to common belief, it is the normal, average person that is most easily indoctrinated. Such a person is normal because he has been influenced to such an extent by the community that he conforms to all its social standards and behaves only in an acceptable way. His held opinions are often borrowed and usually do not come from independent intellectual thinking." That's the end of the quote from the Awake. And Ray says the article claims that Jehovah's Witnesses are different in these areas. Yet, in most cases, they exemplify the very kind of person described.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I would share his sentiments about branding as a cult. Oh, I understand we've got to be cautious. But on the other hand, yes, we observe too there's cultic tendencies within the church. Lots of churches, especially charismatic churches.
Yeah. I think the difference is that they, the degree, I guess it's the degree of isolation.
Yeah.
With most churches, you're not forbidden to listen to, read other person's information. So I think that would be the biggest difference. But it's certainly something that you should always be cautious and looking for.
But there are cults.
Yes.
And although many, even cult experts or people who are in discernment ministry, have reservations about branding specific groups as cults, cults are characterized by, like you say, the extreme of isolation, especially demonizing the outsider.
Yeah.
There's no salvation outside the group, as he plainly says was the case in the Moonies. We want to attach on your screen link and
2 links, right?
2 links to 2 series we did of videos back over a year ago. One of them is called Identifying Destructive Religious Groups, and the other one is called
Slaves of Men.
Slaves of Men, and it's the 5 characteristics of cultic groups. So the first one concentrates on Stephen Hassan and other cult experts, and the second one is more based on our own observations over the
Yeah.
years.
Mhm.
And in the next segment, we're going to be discussing how does the Watchtower isolate. It's obviously not as in the case of many groups that are more commonly called cults,
Cut
by
off
physical
from-
isolation. How does the Watchtower isolate its members? Next time.
Okay.